Hello everyone, this is John Lockhart, and I want to thank all of you for attending the SmartBear webinar today. The subject of today's webinar is building better software with Agile code reviews. And so what we're going to do is just do a little introduction, talk a little bit about the agenda, and we're going to dive into talking a little bit about what SmartBear brings to the table in terms of code reviews, how they can benefit your team, and take a look at our latest product. So just a few sort of housekeeping events and notices and things to keep in mind. Questions, please feel free to submit questions at any time using the question feature in the GoToWebinar panel. So you can pose questions there anytime. We'll collect them up toward the end of the webinar at the end of our demo, and we'll answer those. Make sure we get all of your questions answered. If you want to Twitter about the event, get some conversations going, please feel free to share the event live using the code review hashtag you see there, and we'll conduct a follow-up session using that same hashtag. So hopefully we can get some good conversations going with attendees and other folks out there interested in code review. We're also going to record this session and make that available on smartbear.com. So look for a follow-up email with instructions on how to access the recording, and please feel free to go ahead and share the recording with your colleagues and other folks who are interested in learning more about the benefits of code review and code collaborator. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we're going to cover. There's sort of two main things that we want to do today. One is we want to talk about the benefits of code review generally and what Code Collaborator brings to the table in making code reviews not just simply more effective, but more fast, easy, a better fit for Agile processes, and even a process that your team members will really enjoy. We also have a new version of our software out that came out just this past month, and we're very excited about that. And so what we want to do is talk a little bit about what's new in our latest version 7.0, and then take you through a sample code review where we'll take you through a typical code review workflow. So go through a typical code review, but also highlight some of the new features that we have in 7.0. So one of the things that I wanted to emphasize is that peer review is one of the most effective ways to fix defects when they're least costly. Cover some of the gaps left by static analysis. Proactively address technical debt. Increase knowledge transfer, as well as improve the quality of your code. So one of the common quality metrics that we always cite is that, and it's very common in the industry, is that defects are least costly to fix before they're released. Least costly to fix before they even make it into QA. And code review is one of those ways that you can catch defects before they even make it to QA. So being able to catch quality issues at the earliest point possible when the code's actually being written. Covering the gaps left by static analysis. We recently had a white paper done by an industry expert, Kaspers Jones, and in that white paper he makes some really great points about the fact that code review is really a necessary complement to static analysis. There are lots of features of the code that and gaps that aren't going to be necessarily covered by static analysis tools, and so being able to catch those early and catch them, catch things that are going to escape and make it past the static analysis tools is one of the things that code review can bring to the table. Proactively addressing technical debt. So having more people involved, sharing knowledge, collaboration is one of the best ways to write better code early on. So that's one of the key benefits of cited of doing pair programming is the ability to implement features in the software better earlier on through proactive code review. So having more eyes on the code, bringing more knowledge into how parts of the code are being written allows you to make better decisions earlier on, instead of addressing technical debt after the fact, addressing it and actually preventing that debt accumulation early on. Increasing knowledge transfer. So this is one of the things that smaller Agile teams, one of the kind of Agile principles is having developers familiar with more than just their area of the code, being able to increase collaboration among the team, and code review has got to be, really practically the best way to do that is having developers collaborate on the code together. And so code review is a practice that brings that to the table as well. And then again, just generally improving the overall quality of your code. So when you have people reviewing it, more eyes on it, there are going to be expectations for having it be, readable, stylistic expectations that are going to encourage developers to write better, cleaner code that's going to be easier for their colleagues to review. So there are a lot of benefits that code review brings to the table. I want to talk a little bit about where Code Collaborator comes in. So given that there are all these tangible and other softer benefits to code review, why doesn't everyone do it? Well, typically code review is considered to be very process heavy. Sometimes it's associated with waterfall development, more formal development methodologies. So often people don't consider code review as an option because they simply think it's too formal. It's going to require meetings, gathering materials. It's going to take people away from their real work, pull them away from their desk, and into activities that have nothing to do with why they're there in the first place. Too time-consuming and too tedious. It's not enjoyable. It's not fun. Folks don't like it. It's not a good cultural fit. So these are just some of the high-level reasons why people just simply won't engage in code review. And we think that's a real misconception because mostly people aren't considering that you can actually have tool-assisted code review that makes the process adaptable to lightweight Agile processes, takes the time-consuming, tedious aspects out of code review, and can make it something that developers will actually enjoy as a collaborative process with their colleagues. So let's talk a little bit about how Code Collaborator kind of changes the game. Code Collaborator enables code reviews that are fast and automated, configurable for lightweight or formal reviews. So by fast and automated, you can establish your own workflow. You can put your own workflow in place. So for example, you can set up certain kinds of subscriptions so that, for example, if a certain file is put up for review, certain team members will be put on that review. Email notifications can be sent out. Code Collaborator does the job of actually organizing all the review materials. It's configurable for lightweight or formal reviews. So one of the things that we provide is a lot of flexibility in terms of who's involved in the review. Workflow reviews about when the review can be completed or accepted, who has to sign off on it. It can involve, as many reviewers as you like. Again, for more formal reviews, it can have a smaller number of reviewers, as many files as you need. One of the things that tool-assisted review brings to the table that you simply can't do with, let's say, pair programming, which is the Agile method of choice, is it's easily accessible by distributed teams. So that's one of the big barriers to implementing code review, is that if you want an Agile process, if you want something that's lightweight, typically in the literature that's going to be pair programming. But obviously that's not something that's easily done with distributed teams. So a tool like Code Collaborator makes code review for these distributed teams extremely simple. It's integrated with key development tools. Now this is another efficiency gain. So we integrate to over 16 version control systems. We integrate to Visual Studio. We integrate to Eclipse development environments. We also integrate to defect tracking tools. So we can kind of be a hub for that review process in which people don't necessarily need to go to a separate tool or change the way they work. They can, for example, take a change list from Perforce and add that directly to a review. They can work within Eclipse or their IDE and perform reviews directly within the development environment. Or if they notice an issue with the code, they can actually go in and just push a comment and make it into a defect that would go into an external defect tracking system. One of the other things that you get with automated or tool-assisted review is that it's reportable and objective. So as reviews are ongoing, we're archiving that data, we're reporting on it, and we're creating metrics. Metrics that can actually help you measure and also communicate the benefits of doing code review. Understand and metric the efficiency of your reviews. And so this is something that would be, again, very difficult, not impossible, but just difficult, unlikely that you would do it without tool-assisted review. So I want to talk a little bit about what's new in version 7.0. So one of the things we're very happy about is a new user interface. And you see some of these elements I've kind of posted over on the right. So we've kind of really reworked the entire user interface based on about 6 or 7 years of experience with our users, and taking our product and looking at how they used it and making it faster, more efficient, easier to use. And so this is mainly going through the application and making common workflows and common ways of working in the product much, much more simple. So fewer clicks, clearer information about what to do next. So you'll see, for example, the workflow diagram at the top, the wait and approve buttons at the bottom. Those are just 2 examples of areas where we looked at where we could help reviewers make decisions more easily. And we've done that all over the application, also minimizing and being more efficient about how we use screen real estate. We've also enhanced our version control integration to Git and Perforce. So we're always looking at new ways to leverage the features built into these SCM tools. So Git, we've been using Git here at SmartBear for quite a while for developing code collaborator. Customers do too. It's increasing in popularity. And so one of the things that we've done with Git is we've added support for post-commit reviews. So the add change list command for adding a change list to a review is now supported for Git. So you can add Git change lists to review just as you can for all many of the other version control systems we support. For Perforce, we've added support for Perforce shell sets. So shelving files is actually a very popular practice. It's one that more and more SCMs do now. And so we support that. So if you have shelved files in a change list, you can add those to a review through our Perforce integration. Integration is always key, particularly for a lot of our enterprise customers. And so one of the things that we've done in this version is we've started implementing a SOAP API. And so the whole goal here is to allow you to extend and integrate Code Collaborator with other products in your environment. And so you can integrate to Code Collaborator using any language that supports a SOAP client. So ways to extend our product beyond anything that we might do out of the box, and ways to tailor it to your particular environment. Workflow is important as well. So we have made some workflow enhancements. One is going to be hierarchical custom fields. So we had lots of customers who wanted to have fields that made it easier for them to track things like product, version, build, etc. So we have cascading custom fields. Also a built-in feature for what we call reject review. So a new way that in certain environments reviewers can choose to decline a review or send it back and have a tracked and metric reason for that. So these are just 2 examples of things that we build in, specific out-of-the-box features that we build in based on customer feedback, the way our customers are telling us that they perform reviews. Also, one of the things that we've been able to do in 7.0, and this will be continued on through subsequent releases this year, is enhanced performance. We've been doing a lot of work under the hood, and so you're going to see much faster page loading, particularly for large reviews. And a lot of the work that we've done on the APIs has paid off in enhancing our performance through the Eclipse plugin. So those are just a few of the highlights of some of the things that we've done in 7.0. We've also talked about some of the benefits of code review generally, some of the misconceptions about it, and misconceptions that based on, again, what we think we bring to the table. That, again, code review can be fast, efficient, easy, and that you can get all of the benefits of code review without any of the agony that people typically associate with it. Code Collaborator makes it very simple. And so what we want to do now is go through a typical code review. And so what I'm going to do is turn control of the screen over to Justin. And Justin is going to take us through a demonstration of performing a code review in version 7.0, hit some of the highlights. While he's doing that, feel free to type in questions, and we will go ahead and answer your questions after the demo's over. So with that said, what I'm going to do is go ahead and make Justin the presenter. And there you go, Justin.
Thanks, John. And thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your day today to attend this webinar and let us show you a little bit about Agile and 7.0 Code Collaborator here. So I'm going to go ahead and get my screen turned on. Hopefully, everybody can now see that. And again, kind of the goal for today is to show you the 7.0 UI, and in addition to that, we're going to walk through a review and kind of show you what that review process looks like here, now using 7.0 for Code Collaborator. And for those that are familiar with 6.5, you'll actually find here that the login screen has changed, right? I mean that's kind of the first thing you notice whenever you first launch 7.0 is that the view has changed. There's kind of a new look and feel. And as we log in, we'll notice that the dashboard has changed as well, and you'll see that this is common as we go through the tool. Everything is changed on all of these individual screens. The idea is to make things more intuitive and easier for people to use. And one of the ways that things have become more intuitive and easier to use is the addition of sortable column headings as an example. So if I were to choose any one of these column headings, I can now actually sort these, which you couldn't do in 6.5. You'll also find here that we can turn off kind of outgoing and incoming items here. We can also check the box to see all of our completed reviews, also kind of narrowing our action items list here. So again, a lot of just kind of functionality enhancements, a lot of things that people have asked for, and we've added now for 7.0. As we actually want to start and create a review here today, what we're going to do is we're going to use the Create New Review option. And you'll notice we have all of our basic information that we need to fill out for creating our review. The tool supports templates, so we actually have just a default template here selected for today. But templates allow you to modify your workflow to make it, kind of to enable custom fields or disable custom fields, maybe based on the group that's actually utilizing the tool for a particular review. Or maybe if you're doing a more formal style review as opposed to an informal review, you may have some unique fields that you want to have available for that. As we kind of come down through here, we have our basic information. So we're going to give it a title. Here. And the biggest thing that we notice here in the basic information, kind of a change for 7.0, is the product version area. This is that hierarchical custom field that John was talking about moments ago. The actual label here that we see, product version area, is configurable, right? I mean, I happen to have mine called that, but of course you can set it up however you need. And this is a configurable item, a custom field that you would go in and manipulate underneath the admin screen within the custom field section. And you could put this field in other areas such as defect custom field instead if you would like to do that. But what you'll notice is we have our product drop down here, and I only happen to have one product listed here. But as I choose the version information, you'll find that the area actually expands, and now I have additional items that I can choose from the area. And so that's how this custom field actually works. And you can have as many different drop-downs out here to the right as you need to have supported here within your basic information. The only limit is 256 characters on any given line. So that's kind of the limit for how many different drop-downs that you can have. So as we'll fill this in here, and we'll continue to scroll down, we have our participant area here. We have a couple of different roles, and this is not unique for 7.0 as opposed to 6.5. Again, author, reviewer, and observer. Same as we had before with 6.5. We'll go ahead and define an author now. We'll set Bob as our author, and we also need to create a reviewer. You do have to have at least one reviewer on a review. And as you begin to type, you'll notice that the actual field, the person, is kind of automatically filtered to matching results. One of the features that has not been added to 7.0 yet, but is coming soon in the 7.1 release, is something that we call review pools. And it's actually something that a lot of companies have asked for, because one of the things that it allows you to do is actually assign a review to a group. And so, again, this is a feature that's coming out in 7.1. It's not available today, but it is something that a lot of folks have requested, and again, you're going to be seeing that here soon. We can talk more about that a little bit later on, maybe. But again, review pools is something that a lot of folks will get to see here soon. We do have just the one reviewer set up here. You can have as many reviewers as you need. We also saw the role of observer. This is a great role if maybe you want to assign a manager to a review or a junior member of your team. You want them to be able to see and participate in the review, but you don't want them to actually be impacting the workflow of that review. And so that's what the observer role can be used for. We have our materials section. I'm going to attach a couple of files here for our review. And let's see, grab a Java file here. And I'm also going to attach a PDF file to this review as well. We'll show you how you could do or perform a review of an artifact that's not necessarily source code. Now, I happen to be attaching these files through the UI here by clicking on Attach File. I'll be honest with you, the majority of users don't utilize the attached file. And the reason why they don't is because, as John mentioned, we do support 16 different SCMs. And so we actually have integration with those SCMs, and we do that integration through a client. And so you would actually install the Code Collaborator client on each of the developers' workstations, and then point that client to the individual SCM that you're utilizing. And oftentimes we find that some teams actually, as they maybe acquire a company or they're transitioning from one SCM to another, you could actually use that client to point to multiple SCMs. So as an example, Git as well as Perforce. And so if I was a member of teams that utilized one or the other, I could actually choose and create a review to either one. So again, the client offers a lot of flexibility for integration into the individual SCMs. I'm not going to showcase that today because each one of the SCMs is unique, but again, we do offer support for 16 SCMs in total. As we continue to scroll down here, you'll notice the next step section. We have apply, apply and annotate, and apply and begin review. And generally, kind of best practice states that we would apply and then go in and annotate our files. We make comments about, everything that we've attached, and that gives the reviewers and the observers, kind of a starting point, good understanding as to why you've made changes to the files that you have. In order to save time today, we're actually just going to do apply and begin review them. So, I've got. Save my. Click them on. There we go. Nope. And now I've gone back and lost mine. There we go. So once we've actually created a reviewer, or created a review, you'll notice that our state has changed. As the actual author of this particular review, you'll see that we have this kind of new phase diagram that John was talking about earlier as he went through the slides. And you can see we've gone into an inspection state. And as the author of this particular review, there's really nothing else that I need to do. I've gone in and I've created the review. I've assigned it out to the individuals that need to participate in it. And there's nothing else that I actually need to perform. And so what we're actually going to do now is I'm going to slide in another browser window. And this is actually going to be the browser window for Justin, who is our reviewer. And now Justin would have been notified that he has a review that he needs to participate in. And we're actually going to go in and we'll see this new review that we've created, which is 7.0 is fun. And we can see that here. Now, those notifications that would have been sent out to Justin could have been done via email. You'll notice here that there's an RSS option. So if you wanted to attach to an RSS feed, if you got the client installed, the client actually does have an action item section, which would display for you that you have a review that's kind of pending and you need to come in and perform that review. So what we'll do is we'll actually click on review number 74, which is our review. Again, we see all of the same information that was defined by Bob earlier. We see this inspection phase here, all of our general information, the hierarchical custom field, and so on. But one of the other things that we can see here is this reject option. And this is new to 7.0. And what it allows us to do is if, for whatever reason, some criteria has not been met for the creation of this review maybe, we could actually reject this review. And we could do that as a reviewer or as an administrator to the tool. And that's actually a configurable option. Within the admin area, you can actually turn off the reject review option altogether. But I'll show you what happens if I click on this. You'll notice that I can select a reject reason. Maybe it's missing files, or the files have not been annotated, wrong files, incorrectly assigned. Again, these are items that I've created. These different reasons, these 4 different reasons, have been created by me. I mean, you can go in and create these reasons to meet your particular workflow and scenarios. But it would allow me to actually choose one of these and then, of course, reject this review. And then from a reporting standpoint, I would always be able to go back in and find out why we've been rejecting different reviews. For today, we're actually not going to reject that review. So we'll go ahead and continue to work through this. As we scroll down, we have the participants section. And you'll notice, again, we can sort these different columns. Now, we're not actually sorting anything right now because we only have one author and one reviewer and so on. But you'll find we have these group by items. So we could group by role, which is what we're currently doing. We can group by state. And we can also group by name. And then, of course, whenever I start to filter these items, filter my column, you can see how those actually get sorted. The other 2 new options that you'll find in 7.0 that are not in 6.5 is the email everyone and the poke everyone option. Again, 2 things that have been requested and we've added to the tool for 7.0. And basically what these allow me to do is instead of individually notifying people, which we would have done in the past, we've had 6.5 allowed us to poke or send emails to an individual. Now we can do it to everybody who's actually participating in the review. And the difference between email everyone and poke everyone is quite simple. Email everyone opens up a mail to link and would allow me to customize the message, and it would actually be sent from my mail client, whatever it is I have installed on my system. Poke everyone is a canned message, and you'll find in the admin section of the tool that there's an email kind of notifications template section. And those allow us to customize all of the different email messages that get sent out from the tool, one of which happens to be the poke option. And so you can actually go in and customize what that message would look like, and again, that gets sent from the tool as opposed to our actual email client. As we scroll down into the different defect log and chat information here, again, you'll notice kind of a different view with 7.0. And then finally, we have our review materials. And we can see we could do a view as overlay or a view as separate. And we can just simply toggle between the 2 here by clicking on the individual items. Now, what we're actually going to do is perform a review here because I want to show you the diff view. So I'm going to open up the prime utils.java file. We'll open this up. And notice that all of our comment information over on the left-hand side, that view has kind of changed here for 7.0. Whereas here on this side, where we actually have our files, it's very similar to what you might have found in 6.5. As we come down through here, We can make comments at an overall level, like, hey, looks good. And we can add that as just a comment at an overall level here to the file. We can also specify an individual line. So we'll go to line 13 as an example. And notice it says start conversation at line 13. I don't have to click. I can just start typing. I can just start typing, and then now I've added a comment on line 13. The other thing that we can do is we'll scroll down here. We'll create a defect, and we click on line number 45 here, and we can again start typing in a conversation. And we can actually include a defect found. We're going to give a label in here as well, so we'll just say change to float. And notice now we have these drop-downs, severity and type. These are custom fields within the tool, and you can actually add items, remove items. You can actually get rid of the fields altogether. But you can actually see all of that information in here. We can go in, and we'll just choose one at random here. But the idea is I can customize these individual items to meet my needs. And when I actually click on Add and Include a Defect, you'll notice that now a defect has been created. Now the term defect in the tool is customizable, and this allows you to configure it to meet your actual workflow needs. Some companies like to go with the term findings or issues instead of the term defect, because oftentimes that term can be overloaded. Now, one of the other things that I want to point out here in 7.0, which is unique to 7.0 as opposed to 6.5, is the addition of timestamps to the actual notifications or comments that have been posted here within the tool. And again, a feature that people have been asking for has been added to the tool here for 7.0. So now you can see those timestamps and see when people have made comments, allowing you to easierly keep up with all of the different comments that are going on, and keeping track as you go through and kind of go get notifications, and you come back in, you start to read through what's going on. So this is one of the files. We've attached that Java file. I wanted to kind of show you how that's done. I'm actually going to click Next File in here as well, just to show you that PDF file that we attached. And I'll kind of zoom out here just to kind of show you. We can also perform a review on a PDF file and other artifacts as well, whether those are JPEG images. We have a print to review capability, which allows you to utilize or print any file into a review. And so if you had a Word document open and you just went to File, Print, you have this new driver called Print to Review. You'd actually send that straight into a review and perform a review as well. The difference between artifact reviews outside of source code is that we handle those by placing push pins on the document. And then you make a comment based on those push pins, and you'll actually see that we have a coordinate system, and that's how we base that. So I'd click here on the document, and I'd begin to type and say, whatever it might be, and I can add that as a comment. So, again, from an artifact standpoint, one of the things that you'll actually find with the tool, kind of this year, is we're going to be making, kind of a lot of updates to our capabilities around document review and artifact review outside of source code. So, just kind of be aware that you'll continue to see updates in regards to this. But it's a great feature, allows you to go in and, again, like I said, perform reviews of items outside of source code, such as requirement docs and so on. With that, kind of the next step of a review is to actually, as the reviewer, is to say, hey, I'm done. There's nothing else that I need to do. And when I do that, you'll see that it takes me back over here to this screen, and I have this next step section. And this is the next thing that I need to do. Now, this is new to 7.0 as well. Not the actual, kind of step itself, but we've actually changed the label. So instead of calling it moving on, which you would have seen in 6.5, we now call it next steps. And so this actually is a little bit more intuitive. We found that people kind of like the name change here. In addition to that, now you only have two options, which is wait and approve. Now you had those same two options in 6.5, but it wasn't as clear as to what it was you wanted to do. There were some additional drop-down menus and so on in that section, and again was a bit confusing for users. And so we think that you'll find the changes here within the next step section make it just easier overall for people. Now, as the actual reviewer, my kind of next step is to come in here and approve these items. And so once I click approve, you'll notice that it says completing the rework phase. And if we scroll up, you'll see that that phase diagram has changed. And so we're now waiting to have those defects fixed that we had previously pointed out to the actual author of this review. And so I'm going to slide this out of the way here, and we'll come back over to the author screen. And you'll notice that the author screen has been updated as well. And as we scroll down, we have the defect log information. We see all of these different comments that have been highlighted in yellow. The review materials section has been simplified for 7.0 as opposed to 6.5. So it's just a little bit cleaner. It's easier to see what's going on. We've color-coded a lot of things. It just kind of stands out a little bit better as to what's going on and what people need to do. If we were to come in, we could see all of the different comments that have been made, and all of these items that are in yellow indicate that I've not actually read them. And so I could do that. I could click mark read here, or I can respond. If I were to respond to one of these comments, I can just say thanks and click add. You'll notice it actually turned gray. And the tool automatically kind of assumes that if you're responding to a comment that you've actually read it, and so that's why it's gone from yellow to gray there. One of the things that I'd like to do is pull in the browser again. So we have a side-by-side comparison. Here on the left we have our author, and on the right we have our reviewer. And you can see that that message has come back. It's automatically shown up here for the reviewer. It says thanks. And so again, the reviewer could respond, and we'll just say, you're welcome. I suppose we probably need an apostrophe here. And now at this point when we click add, you'll notice that, again, we went from yellow into a gray, stating that we've actually read it. But notice what happens over here on the author screen is it automatically updates. And so like a chat session, we can go back and forth, very quickly working through a review. And so if we're kind of like on a time crunch, we want to make sure that we get this review done very quickly, and we're both online at the same time, we can communicate very quickly and work through that review and finish it out. However, in a scenario where, let's say, we're in different time zones, or I've gone home for the day, or whatever it might be, anytime you make these changes and updates, all of these different comments show up as in yellow as being not read. And when I do log back in, I can see all of those yellow comments, and I can pick up right where we left off within the context of this review. So I always like to show, how that works here within the context of the review. At this point, what I'm actually going to do is, as the author, I would have to go in and make changes to these files, and I would have to re-upload them into the review after I make the changes, because we found this defect down here which says, hey, you need to go change into float and so on. And so what I would want to do is actually go in and mark those items as, or address those items, and then request that somebody actually goes in and verifies them. So we'll do that real quickly here before we end the demo portion. We'll edit this review. We're going to attach some additional files here. We'll choose our file. We'll go in and just add this utils file, and then we'll apply. And I'm going to come back, I guess, and choose apply and return. So now we're back into our review. And if we scroll down, we notice that our prime utils Java file has been updated. You can see the status. And if I mouse over it, you can see a little tooltip there that says it's been reworked one time. And what I would have to do as the author is go in and say, now that I've made these changes, now we're going to request verification. Now, generally, I went in and very quickly uploaded the file. It was, kind of pre-changed prior to this demo, just so we could kind of navigate through this very quickly. But if I would have gone back in to my IDE, I would have made changes or whatever, and that file might be in, checked in or checked out or whatever it might be. Again, our integration with those 16 different SCMs allows you to utilize the Code Collaborator client to very easily pick up on those additions or changes that you've made to the file, and then very easily upload those into the review, rather than us going in and saying attach files. So, we've simplified the process here for today, but remember, all of that integration with the individual SCMs automatically does a lot of that stuff for you. It makes it very easy for you to select the files that you need to attach to a review and so on. At this point, as the author, I need to go in and say, hey, I'm done. I'm going to request verification. So one more time, we're going to send this back over to our reviewer and have him check out the changes that I've made. And so we'll do that now. Now, one of the other things that you'll notice that just happened is I said, hey, I'm done requesting verification. Notice this next step section is a little bit different than what we saw a moment ago. This is a feature you would have seen in 6.5, but again, the idea with 7.0 was to kind of simplify it. We've made it so you can actually choose any activity occurs, which is, anytime a change is made, notify somebody, send an email, if you will. Or when file activity occurs, then at that point, send me a notification or let me know what's going So now you can kind of tweak, and you could do this in 6.5, like I said, but it's a little bit easier to kind of navigate through here in 7.0. You can kind of handle when you actually receive notifications, when you're brought back into reviews. One of the things that I run into a lot is people say, hey, I keep getting tons of emails, and every time somebody makes a comment, I have to come back to the review and so on. In the administrative area of the tool, you'll find that there's a roles section. And that roles section allows you to kind of customize the workflow. And one of those things that you can customize is do I have to read every single comment? You know, is a reviewer responsible for reviewing every comment, and reading every comment, marking them as being read, and observers and so on? You can actually go in and modify that particular role as an example, and it will cut down on notifications or cut down on how often you're brought back into a review and so on. So again, that roles area within the administrative section allows you to kind of customize or help you to kind of maintain and determine when you actually receive email notification. Now, as the author, there's nothing else I need to do at this point. I've sent it back over to our reviewer, and now we want the reviewer to go in and just kind of double check and see what's been done and see if those changes have been addressed. And I'll slide back in the reviewer's browser, and we can see that that browser has automatically been updated, just the same information that we saw a moment ago on the actual author screen. You know, the status information has been reworked one time and so on. When I open this up now, you'll actually see here I've got an over-under diff view, and we can see all of these different changes that have been highlighted here. If I were to click on you know, line 7 as an example, notice it automatically highlights line 7. The other important thing to notice is that line 13, it was actually line 13 in the original file, and now it happens to be line 7 as an example. If we were to scroll down and click on line 40, it'll go down and automatically highlight that for me as well. And I can see those changes that have been made. So the tool allows you to very kind of quickly bounce down into the individual comments and see all of those items and highlight those comments for you so you can kind of navigate through here. Now, there's a couple of different things you can do with the tool. You can change your diff view. If you prefer a side-by-side diff view as an example, you can do that. Anytime you attach a file to a review, we always give you the capability to choose compare and then show or compare the different versions as you might have attached. So whether that's, you know, kind of local changes that you've been attaching to the review, or if there are items that have actually been checked in, the revisions as an example, you can actually have those as a comparison here as well. So a lot of different ways to kind of compare and change the diff view here within the tool. As the reviewer, though, it's one of the things I have to do is actually mark defects as being addressed or fixed if they have indeed been fixed. And we can see that we had asked them, the author, Bob, to change to float, and we can see that that's been done. And so this is no longer a defect as an example, and again, that term defect is customizable. My role as the reviewer is to actually come in here and say, hey, this issue has been addressed, and we're going to mark it fixed here. And when I do, notice that that now turns green. I mean, this is important because you're not allowed to close a review if you have not marked all of your defects fixed, as an example, or at least moved those or tracked those externally to the tool, maybe in a bug tracking utility. So it's important, you know, like I said, as the reviewer, that I perform this role. It's my responsibility if I mark something as being a defect that I actually come in and verify that it's been addressed. And then once I've done that, and I've looked through all of the different files, and I've checked everything off, and everything looks good, my next step is just to simply say, hey, I'm done with this review. There's nothing else that I need to look at. I'm comfortable with all of the changes that have been made. And when I click Done, the last step that I need to do is actually click Approve. And when I do that, you'll notice I have no other next step options here. If I scroll up to the very top, you can see that this review has been completed. And so that kind of walks us through a demo of kind of a review start to finish. That was very basic. You know, we only went back and forth the one time. We sent it back to the author for rework just once, and then the reviewer signed off on it. We could have gone through that as many times as necessary until the files had been addressed and everything was taken care of. We talked about all of the different UI changes here that we have in 7.0 and just how the workflow is a bit easier to kind of navigate through. And the UI is just cleaner and easier to read and kind of follow along. Some of the things that John had mentioned were version control integration with Perforce shelf sets and Git change lists, as well as the addition of an API now for 7.0. And I just wanted to point out that if you go to the help documentation, In the upper right-hand corner here, you can click on Help, and you can also access help from the SmartBear corporate site. But help is built into the tool. When you click on Help, you'll find version control integration. You'll find Perforce as an example, and you'll find the information about shelf sets there. Or if I were to choose Git, I could see the Git change list changes that have been added to the tool. Also, underneath the external integrations, we find a web services, and here's information about the API documentation for the SOAP API, as well as the Java doc that's associated to that. So all of that information that you might care about if you have one of those specific version control or SCMs, or if you are interested in taking a look at the API, this is the area that you'd want to go take a look at. With that kind of concludes the demo for today. Walks through everything I wanted to make sure that we touched on. I'm sure that there's several questions that have popped up at this point, and John, I know you've been kind of looking through those, and maybe we could take some time now to address those with the last little bit here before the top of the hour.
Sounds great. Thanks for that great demo, Justin. That was excellent, and your timing was good because we've really compiled a pretty thorough list of questions. And so what I want to do now is go ahead and take those. We should have enough time for all of them. I hope we do. We've got about 15 minutes left, and I'm going to go ahead and take them roughly in chronological order. One of the things I will do is I will address one question that came up several times, which is some of you may know that we have a kind of a sister product to Code Collaborator called PeerReview Complete. And PeerReview Complete is a product based on Code Collaborator that is more geared toward document review. So it'll do all the things that you saw in Justin's demo, but also has some tweaks here and there for reviewing documents. And so there were some questions posed during the demo asking essentially, will there be a version of PeerReview Complete that will have all the great stuff that Justin just showed you? And the answer is yes. So we focused on Code Collaborator today. PeerReview Complete has been released as well, a version of that at the same time as 7.0, with all those same user interface enhancements. All the good stuff you just saw is in PeerReview Complete. One of the things that, and this kind of addresses some of the other questions as well, but I'll go through these individually, is that as you'll see as we move forward this year, you'll also see some neat stuff being introduced in PeerReview Complete specifically for document review. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the questions. So let me just go ahead and scroll down, and I'll just read through these. And what I'll try to do is take these in chronological order, and if we run out of time or if we miss any, we'll be sure to follow up with you. The first question I'd like to answer is, so are there any improvements to reports and metrics in 7.0? And then this kind of as a follow-up was to be able to, let's say, add some dynamic fun facts. We have one of the things that we have in Code Collaborator is this ability to publish up some messages and some facts that show up on the home page. We haven't really made any enhancements to reporting in 7.0. Regarding the question about the fun facts, we'd probably need to follow up with you on that. I think that we might be able to do that through our APIs, but there also may be some ways to do it by just putting those directly in the database. Did you have any comments on that, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, actually, within the admin area, the term dynamic, I don't know if it's necessarily dynamic. I mean, we kind of do pick up some dynamic fun facts, if you will, saying things like, hey, you've completed the 15th code review or whatever. But you can also create your own extra fun facts, and underneath the admin area of the tool, underneath the general kind of heading, at the very, very bottom, you'll find a section for fun facts, and you can actually enter in your own fun facts in there as well, so if there's additional items you want to add. Beyond that, again, we do have some system-generated fun facts. As far as all of the specifics of what's generated, I don't know off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, definitely check out kind of the bottom section of that admin general area for additional kind of fun fact changes there.
Right, right. I mean, you can add them in the admin UI, so we can probably find a way if you wanted to pull those. You mentioned you wanted to pull the questioner mentioned that they wanted to pull them from an external source. We could probably figure out a clever way to do that. Next question is about Active Directory integration. So the question is, does Code Collaborator integrate with Active Directory so that the user IDs come directly from there instead of having to manage a separate user list? And the answer is yes. So we integrate to LDAP and to Active Directory. And so we have plenty of customers that use that with just standard LDAP or, again, using it through AD. Again, it's pretty much a standard feature of the product. As it always is with things like LDAP, companies implement it differently. So we've got a lot of documentation on how to tailor it to your specific environment. I think that's again, it's just pretty much an out-of-the-box feature. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Justin?
Yeah, you'll find LDAP integration information within the help documentation of the tool. I think it's under help, server administration, I think is where you start. In addition to that, we do have an Active Directory video that walks through how to kind of configure that and get it set up for your environment. I don't know who asked that question, but maybe we could take it as an action item here to send a link to that video to that individual.
Yeah, we're going to have a log of all these questions and the people who asked them. So if we feel that there's some follow-up items, we'll definitely get back in touch with you because we'll have your name and email address associated with your question. Another question that came in was, we have multiple CC servers in our company. Is there support in V7 for switching between Code Collaborator servers when adding code via Perforce, like through the Perforce add-in? Do you have any input on that one, Justin? That was switching between Perforce, switching between CC servers when you're adding from Perforce.
I don't have any comments on that, unfortunately. I would have to talk to somebody who's more familiar with the specifics of our Perforce integration.
Right.
I don't know that anything has changed from 6.5 to 7.0 outside of Perforce shelf sets.
Yeah.
So I don't know about that kind of functionality. If it didn't exist in 6.5, let's say, I wouldn't expect to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking your comments will take. And so besides shelf set support, there really haven't been any other changes to the Perforce integration. So if that's something you've asked about before, probably what we'll do is cycle back after this question and answer session and ask you a little bit more about your environment. But essentially, I think what you want to do is be able to, from the Perforce integration, target different Code Collaborator servers from the client. So we'll follow up with that individual. Let me go back and scroll down to another question. Can Code Collaborator 7 client be used with a 6.5 server? And that one, I don't think that would be supported. I think you would need to upgrade your server to be able to use the V7 client.
But I don't think things would break, catastrophically.
Right.
Definitely not recommended. And technically,
right.
If you were to call in and say, hey, we're having some problems, the first thing the support team would say is, hey, you need to upgrade your server. So yeah, again, if you were to accidentally install version 7, I don't think things would break catastrophically. But again, not technically supported.
Right. I guess, yeah, I think we try to make the products as forward and reverse compatible as possible. Again, Justin's point's well taken. Would probably work, not entirely recommended. Let me scroll down and take some more questions. Here's another one about PeerReview Complete. The question is, PeerReview Complete, do PeerReview Complete tools offer different functionality? In the current version, the functionality is nearly identical. Mostly what you're going to see between PeerReview Complete and Code Collaborator are differences in terminology. The way we entered that segment of our customer base was to really address some kind of terminology changes in the way they perceived what they were doing in the tool. What you're going to see coming out this year, and there's some exciting things on the roadmap, are going to be some more robust functional changes for reviewing documents that are going to be quite exciting. I can't talk about those right here, but we'd be sure happy to follow up with you if you're interested in seeing some new things out of PeerReview Complete. Next question is about integration with Git. Question was just generally, can you talk more about the integration between Git and Code Collaborator? And I think, really, when you're talking about that integration, it's going to be the ability to, add files, change lists, or files pre-commit to a review. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Justin? Maybe anything specific to Git that folks are typically interested in?
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I mean, obviously, the support for, the change lists, today, but of course we've always supported Git as a general rule, right, with the ability to do add changes and so on, and add Git diffs as an example. And so we've always had that support. Additional information is available in the help documentation. And then if you have kind of specific questions about the kind of the functionality around Git or anything like that, we'd be more than happy to be able to address those offline for you. But it's, I'd say, a little bit difficult for me to say or speak specifically to any one thing at this point.
All right. Let me go ahead and take the next question. The question was, I see some support for bug trackers. Is it possible, to integrate with HP Quality Center? And the question to that is going to be yes for really any defect tracking system that can insert a defect record from a URL. So one of the things that we do to integrate with the defect tracking systems, which is actually really kind of nice, is that you go into the admin tool and you can configure the format of a URL that will basically submit the defect into that system. And so I believe, I'm almost absolutely certain that Quality Center supports that. So the answer is yes, we'd support Quality Center to the extent that it could accept a URL, a URL submission, and any other defect tracking system. And then there may also be, if you wanted something more sophisticated, there may be some options there using like our APIs, for example. Did you have anything to add to that, Justin?
No, I think that was spot on.
Pretty much covered it? Yeah, I think so too. Another question about the timestamps. This is a new 7.0 feature. Let me see here. Are the timestamps configurable to the person's own time zone? Actually, that's a question I have. Where do we, the time zones are based on local time, Justin?
Yeah, your time zone is actually configurable within your user press, your individual, so if you were to click on press, it's in 7.0, it's called press. It's called settings in 6.5. So, I mean, you can always change your time zone there. As it relates specifically to the timestamps, that is unique to 7.0. As far as how those items are displayed, it is based on that time zone that you specified in your user press, to the best of my knowledge.
Okay. Okay, great, great. I'm going to keep moving here because actually the questions are kind of piling up, and I want to make sure that we have enough time to cover them as much as possible. One question is about upgrades. So folks are interested in upgrading. One question was, if you currently have 6.5, is there any cost to upgrade? As long as you're on current on support and maintenance, upgrades are covered by your support and maintenance contract. Here's a reporting question, and I'll probably let you take this one, Justin. Are there reports that summarize defects found in code by severity and type?
Yeah, you can definitely go in and add report metrics around those items. If I'm trying to think of exactly which report that would be off the top of my head here. Yeah, you should definitely be able to report on that, though I just can't think of the report off the top of my head. But yeah, if you go into the reports area, I'm pretty certain that's actually something you could do within the filters section within that.
All right. Go here. Let me go ahead and take another question, and that's going to be, is there any way to assign reviewers to specific artifacts in the review?
No, I mean, the reviews and the artifacts, any artifact that is attached to a review is accessible by anybody who's a member of that review. And there's no way to say this artifact is for this reviewer and this artifact is for that reviewer. That said, I mean, I guess there's nothing that prevents one from opening the other. That said, a great way to use apply and annotate. You'll actually find that when you use apply and annotate, a little plus sign out to the right-hand side of those files, and in the notes section, you can actually specify somebody's name there if you wanted to kind of help introduce them to specific files only that they might be responsible for.
Right. I mean, one of the things that I think is also relevant is that you can also set up subscriptions for artifacts. So if a developer is interested in a particular file or group of files, you can set up subscriptions that would automatically subscribe them to those. So that is one way that you can tag, a particular reviewer to a specific set of files.
And real quick, John, before we move to the next question, the answer to the defect question, reports, and underneath reports you'll find an area called customizable defect reports, and you probably just want to start with the all defects and then look underneath the filters to help you narrow down that search.
Okay, and let me scroll down. There are actually a number of questions about future enhancements in PeerReview Complete. So there are several questions about the roadmap for PeerReview Complete, and I think what we'll do is we'll contact you folks offline. So again, we have a log of all of the questions, so we'll compile those and give you folks kind of address those on a one-on-one basis. And let me look through the questions again and see if there are any I can tackle here. And I think that is it. I think that is all the questions that we're going to take during the session today. Again, what we'll do is we'll take these questions and go back through them, and ones that we need to take offline, we will contact you. And if you have any questions after this session, don't hesitate to contact me personally. I'm John Lockhart. I'm the product manager for the peer review products. You should be able to see my email right there on the screen. So if you like, go ahead and email me a question. And again, don't hesitate to go on Twitter and tweet about what you saw today using that hashtag, the code review hashtag, which will be a great way for you to start some conversations about what you saw today. We'll be able to go up and respond and tweet in kind, so we can kind of identify each other via that hashtag. That said, I think we're just running just a little bit over, and we had some great questions. I think a really good session and a great demo from Justin. And I thank all of you for attending today. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.